Never pay your first medical bill. The data is clear, up to 49% of medical bills have mistakes, yet 64% of us never challenge them. Why? Because honestly, from a young age, we're conditioned to treat hospitals like unquestionable authorities. You get a bill with a due date and a scary total, and you just assume that you have to start paying it. I mean, nobody wants to deal with debt collectors, but that instinct actually works in the hospital's favor, and some hospitals have actually taken advantage of it. In reality, your first hospital bill is actually just an opening offer. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how to respond to it. Simple ways to push back, spot overcharges, and understand why so many hospital bills are wrong in the first place. Let's dive in. On New Year's Day back in 2021, a Chicago doctor named Bhavin Shah was on a skiing trip with his kids. He hit an ice patch and he took a bad fall, and as a doctor, he immediately knew that there was something wrong with his arm. So he went to the emergency room where he got an exam, he got x-rays, some meds, and a splint because he had actually broken that arm. A few weeks later, he got a bill in the mail for $10,563.49 from the hospital. That's American healthcare right there. He was just gonna pay his portion of the bill, a little bit over $3,000, but his wife, who actually works at his medical practice, said she would take a look at the bill and see if there was anything wrong with it. She worked with medical bills all the time, and she thought that one seemed kind of high. She decided to ask the hospital to send something over called an itemized bill. Basically a list of codes for everything that the hospital did to her husband's arm. And because of her experience, she immediately noticed that something was off. A charge for $6,961.75 with a CPT code written as 24505. She decided to investigate that code, and turns out that specific one was for treating a fractured humerus without making an incision. That never happened to Dr. Shah when he went to the emergency room. So she fought the medical bill. Using a few techniques that we're going to discuss in a minute, she was able to lower the bill from $10,000 to the point where he was only required to pay $1,214.91. What's crazy about this story to me is that the doctor didn't even think about questioning his medical bill. He just assumed it was correct and he was going to pay it. I mean, I need to emphasize, this is a medical doctor that has no idea what a service like a broken arm would cost. He just was gonna pay it. And he's not alone. As I mentioned before, 64% of Americans don't fight their hospital bills. They just get them and they start paying them, whether that be a payment plan or they put it on credit, whatever it may be. But the data says that fighting a medical bill mistake will usually help you get it corrected. Now, millions of medical bills contain mistakes every single year. Why does this happen? Well, there's three big reasons, two that are valid and one that is deceptive. Number one, registration and admin errors. This is the most common reason why medical bills go wrong, and it typically happens before you even actually see the doctor. It's as simple as a paperwork mistake made by the clerk when you check in. If the clerk mistypes your insurance ID number or your name, the insurance company computer won't find a match for you. And instead of the hospital fixing the typo when they get a response from the insurance company saying they don't recognize anybody by that name, sometimes they just send the full, non-discounted bill straight to you. Number two, coding inaccuracies and duplicate charges. Hospitals are massive and often the different departments don't talk to each other. This leads to a lot of technical mistakes where you get charged for the same thing twice. Let's say the nurse and lab tech both enter the same blood draw code into the system. And this category also includes the wrong technical codes for the care you received, which can completely change what you're expected to pay. And the deceptive one is upcoding. Upcoding is when a hospital takes the service that you actually got at the hospital and upgrades it to a more expensive version. To do this, they use a system of 5 tiers. Think of these tiers like a 1 to 5 scale that measures how much work the doctor did and how risky your case was. Level 1's the lowest. This is for a minor self-limiting problem. An example would be coming in just to have your surgical staples removed or a quick check on a minor scrape that's healing. It requires very little medical decision making. Level 5's the highest. This is for those high complexity, life-threatening situations. An example would be a patient arriving with severe chest pain or multiple traumatic injuries from a car accident that requires constant monitoring and immediate complex decisions. The fraud here often happens in the middle. A hospital might treat you for a level 2 minor injury, like Dr. Shah's broken arm and splint, but they bill it as a level 4 or 5. They're essentially telling the insurance company that your case was more complex and dangerous than it really was so that they can collect a larger check. People say that this doesn't happen that often, but let me just give you a stat. Between 2011 and 2021, the number of level 5 emergency room visits billed to Medicare increased by 68%, while the lower level visits dropped, despite there being no evidence that patients were actually getting sicker. Except during COVID, of course. But what can you do to make sure that you don't overpay? Marshall Allen, a legendary investigative journalist, spent his entire career exposing how the healthcare system works against us. He wrote a book called Never Pay the First Bill. It's basically a book about how to beat the healthcare system at its own game. I think it should be mandatory reading for all high school seniors. I mean, you've got kids being forced to read The Great Gatsby, and that's not going to keep you out of medical debt, especially when there's 100 million Americans in medical debt. Here are Marshall Allen's top 5 strategies to fight medical bills. First, never pay the first medical bill. Understandably, people stress out when they get a medical bill. Often the total is more than people have saved, and it can feel like you have to pay it right now, but that's not the case. Wait for your explanation of benefits, also called an EOB, from your insurance company first. This document shows what the insurance company actually agreed to pay. If your bill from the hospital doesn't match the EOB, the hospital is likely trying to balance bill you for the difference, which might actually be illegal based off the circumstance. Number 2, immediately demand an itemized bill with CPT codes. A bill that's just a summary of what happened to you at the hospital with a big total at the bottom is why many Americans are overcharged. You need the itemized version that includes CPT codes, a 5-digit number that tells you exactly what procedure was performed. And once you have the codes, you can actually just Google them to see if they actually match what happened in the room. And from time to time, simply asking for the CPT codes on an itemized bill can cause a hospital to notice some errors and actually correct them ahead of time before you start negotiating. Number 3, use the 2 times Medicare rule. Medicare, which is a government-run insurance program for seniors, is the floor for what procedures actually cost at a hospital. Marshall Allen recommends checking what Medicare pays for your specific CPT code. A fair price for a private insurance patient is usually about 2 times or 200% the Medicare rate. If your hospital is charging you 10 times the Medicare rate, you have massive leverage to negotiate that down. Number 4, ask for the cash price. Sometimes your insurance company is a terrible negotiator, and sometimes that's on purpose, something I've covered in other videos. You might find that the cash price or self-pay price for a test or scan is actually lower than the discounted price your insurance negotiated. If you get relatively few procedures done at the doctors, just ask them, what's the cash price if I don't use my insurance? And number 5, the nuclear option, small claims court. If the hospital refuses to correct a clear error or an unfair charge, Marshall Allen suggests taking them to small claims court. I know it sounds scary and expensive, but it's actually a really good move in some cases. It costs about $50 to file, and the hospital has to send a high-paid lawyer to defend a bill that might be less than what they have to pay the lawyer to defend it. Sometimes they'll just settle or drop the charge because it's not worth their time. If you have any success stories on how you've gotten a hospital bill corrected or lowered, please share them in the comments for others. And if you found this video interesting, you'd like to see more like it in the future, please consider subscribing for more. This is Tyler Etchover. Thanks for watching.